There was no good girls today on the pitch, just 11 bad boys who were put in their place by the men in maroon. Welcome back, guys, to Fog Football. No good girls today for Brendan Rodgers. Instead, he has turned his attention elsewhere, and that, of course, is the officials. He is blaming them for Celtic's 2-0 defeat against Hearts in the capital. Instead of being honest, instead of taking accountability, instead of admitting that his Celtic team is shite and that he is running out of answers and that the pressure is piling up on him and that he looks like he's going to lose the league to Rangers, instead of admitting any of that, he's coming out and he's blaming the officials, calling it awful officiating, crying about how they were cheated. I mean, Celtic got their first penalty awarded against them today, and literally Brendan Rodgers and the Celtic fan base are having a meltdown. Yeah, they had 14 penalties for going into this match, I believe, and no penalties against. But they concede one penalty today, and all of a sudden, Scottish football is corrupt. Celtic have been cheated. What a load of shite. Look how many penalties Celtic have got this season. Look how many points Celtic have picked up because of penalties. That Hibernian game was an absolute joke. I didn't hear Brendan Rodgers crying like a bitch after that one. Also didn't see him crying like a bitch today when Celtic were awarded a penalty. It's no our fault. It's no Hearts' fault that Ida is pish and couldn't score it. Anyway, let's listen to what Brendan Rodgers had to say.
My feeling is the game was decided by the officials on the field and outside of the field. And you guys will know me long enough and around enough to know that I don't really comment on officials, and I know they make mistakes and whatever else. But today that felt it was really, really poor officiating. I think the first one, the sending off, there's no force. You know, if you show a still image of that, then of course you'll see a foot up with a head near it. But it's not the reality of the move. And if you watch the move again, and Don got it actually right on the field, it was a high boot. Okay, so it's a yellow card. No malice, no force. For John Beaton to actually look at that in VAR, supposedly under no pressure, and to say that was a sending off, I find it incredible. And then the second one's worse. So to have a penalty go against you for that, then there'll be penalties every single weekend, midweek. I don't know what he's supposed to do. You know, Tomo, he's jumping, he's got a nudge, he's coming down, the ball falls onto his arm, there's no intention to move it or anything. And then you get the penalty against, you know, and again, you get the chance to look at it. But so to give that, it left us with those two decisions, really left us with an uphill task in the game. And credit to my players because they fought, they kept going, and they got a little bit of luck in the second half. Their keepers made a few good saves. You know, we can get one of them, it changes the momentum of the game, but it was a poor day for the officials. VAR is not the problem here. I think that's what's clear. It's competence, you know, and I think the first one is a great example of the game being refereed outside of the pitch. The referee made the decision, and someone outside made another decision to say it was a sending off. So that's the game being refereed outside of the field. And in big games, that costs you. That today was awful officiating. And what was a big game for us?
And there you go, you heard the excuses. He can say whatever he wants, he can blame whoever he wants, but at the end of the day, that doesn't change the fact, that doesn't deflect from the fact that he has lost an 8-point lead to Rangers at the top of the table, and he's also destroyed a champions side that Ange Postecoglou built. So that's all on Brendan Rodgers. Let's talk about today's game. First of all, he's saying that the match was refereed and the match was decided from outside of the pitch. So he's blaming it on VAR, the people controlling VAR, for deciding the game. I mean, that's nonsense. That's what VAR is for. So are you telling me that he doesn't want any decisions going to VAR? Because I didn't see him complaining when Celtic have been awarded penalties this season with VAR. Why didn't he turn around in the Hibs game and say, no, see what, I don't want this game to be decided off the pitch, so don't give us the second penalty against Hibernian? Did he do that? No, he didn't. He lapped it up. That second penalty against Hibs saved his bacon, and he had no issues with VAR, and he had no issues with someone off the pitch deciding the game that night. But today, when he thinks it doesn't go his way, when he needs to make excuses for why Celtic were so shite and why they lost the game, he's trying to suggest that somehow the game has been decided by an outside force, as if like an illegal alien has came down and just, screwed Celtic out of nowhere. No, it's not how it fucking works, okay? The game was decided by VAR. You're quite happy for this to happen when it goes for Celtic, but today you're making out as if it's a big deal, as if it's like ruining football, as if this is some like unsportsmanship decision because it was decided by VAR. Absolute nonsense for Brendan Rodgers. And let's talk about the two decisions, or should we talk about the three decisions? Because he doesn't want to talk about the first one. He doesn't want to talk about the penalty that Celtic were given, and it wasn't even a penalty. There was literally nothing in it. I mean, Yang and Cochrane are going for the same ball. There's not even a challenge put in. It's just two guys side by side. Yang falls over and a penalty's given. I don't know anyone claiming that as a penalty. I even seen Ryan118 say that wasn't a penalty either. So I've seen Chris Sutton say it wasn't a penalty. I think Neil Lennon said it wasn't a penalty. I don't know anyone that thought that was a penalty, apart from Brendan Rodgers, because he didn't mention it and he thought that was a good decision. He thought the referees got that one right. As for the sending off, I mean, it's a boot to the face. It's a what does he expect? What the fuck does he expect? He's booted him in the face. His studs are showing. It's dangerous play, and he's talking about you can freeze it here and freeze it there and it looks worse. If you freeze anything, it looks worse. It doesn't matter what kind of tackle it is. You can freeze a tackle at a certain point, and it can look like a red card. It can look like a leg breaker. I mean, that's fact. When you freeze something, it always looks bad. But Rodgers needs to admit that this looked bad without freezing it. Like I said, his boot was in his fucking face. Like the sole of his boot was in Cochrane's face, studs showing. I think this is a red card 100%. I don't see how he can complain about this. I honestly don't understand. Well, I understand he's butthurt and he's lost the game and he needs to point to the fact they were down to 10 men, but let's be real. Well, let's be honest, Celtic weren't that great with 11 men. I thought Hearts started well enough. I think Hearts could have went on and won this game had that red card not been given. And then the penalty, it actually hits, I believe it's Johnson. It hits Johnson's arm first, then it hits Awata's arm. It hits him under the t-shirt line, the arm line of the t-shirt, and we've seen penalties like this given, and we've seen penalties like this not given. So it's not like this is a crazy controversial decision that we've never seen before. Alright, you can argue it's harsh. If it's given, I think fair enough. If it's not given, I wouldn't be complaining about it. I wouldn't be screaming about it. I wouldn't say it was a stonewall penalty because it's not. I think the handball rule in general for penalties, it needs to be cleared up, because a lot of times we see handballs that we don't think are penalties and a penalty is given, and then we see handballs that we do think are penalties and they're not given. So I think we need to be more consistent with the handball rule, but this wasn't the worst handball decision that I've seen. Even the Aberdeen one a few weeks ago was insane against Hibernian when that wasn't given against Aberdeen. But Brendan Rodgers here, I mean, he's crying about this, he's crying about that. Your team were beat today. They were well beat. And the game being decided off the pitch nonsense just because a VAR decision went against his way. Like I said, they've had plenty of decisions go their way. They've had plenty of penalties given for them this season, and you don't see him coming out crying about those. But today, when they were well beaten by Hearts, he's going to moan, he's going to bitch about it. Because he has to. He has to try and take the attention off him and the fact that Celtic are struggling. So he's not going to give Hearts any credit. He's not going to admit that his team weren't good enough today. He's going to blame the officials. And that is cheap. That is very, very cheap. Anyway, guys, that's it. I'll catch you in the next one. Brendan Rodgers, what a dick. Till next time. Peace.